Meet the Serum, a comprehensive guide to the malevolent shadows, satyrs, soldiers, and nightmares of the ancient world. This is an article from the website Diabolical Confusions. One of the founding fathers of psychoanalytical psychology, Carl Jung, coined the concept of archetypes, subconscious concepts universally ingrained in the human psyche that embody a deeper part of our intelligence. Among the most well-known of these is what's called the shadow archetype, the living embodiment of the darkness within and without any heart, the part that acts with no restraint, but in pure indulgent consumption. Jung said that the shadow was what made man afraid of the dark in such a primeval way. But any child can attest that it is not the dark desires within themselves that wakes them in such a stirring fear when the world is without light, but rather that which dwells in the darkness. That their fear is real and rational and accurate, all because of what they feel and know watches and hunts them within the dark, living off of their life force and growing as stronger as time and emotion is spent through the everyday rigors of life. Those who have experienced this feeling of not being alone in an empty room, knowing that once the light is extinguished, a whole new level of horrors await them in the darkness that is to be. It is the cause for a fear of the dark, and with good reason. Every culture bears a creature that lives in darkness and follows the same pattern: imps, goblins, trolls, etc. Though references are fleeting, the Holy Bible makes several mentions of these sorts of creatures, often translated as satyrs via the King James Version in a nod to Greek mythology and dismissed as a fantastic allusion. These creatures occupy a wide niche within the mythology of the day. These are called serum, literally meaning hairy beasts or goats. The word is intended to denote a feral, bestial chimera pulled from some nightmarish realm. There are multiple origin stories on a local scale, usually involving some sort of witchcraft or vengeful spirit taking on the form of a walking shadow. Others describe them as half-living creatures, never actually born, but just a consequence of the existence of darkness. From the Judeo-Christian mythos, their creation is attributed to the necromancing of Archfid of Wrath, Ashmedai, also called Asmodeus, who in turn is believed to be the descendant from the Zoroastrian devil, Angramenu, the evil spirit of absolute destruction and adversary of the Creator. In this school of mythology, on the orders of the Morning Star, Lucifer, looking to supplement the ranks of his army during the war in heaven, Ashmedai descended into the deepest circles of hell. The precise purpose of his mission was to experiment with the darkness of hell, known in classical Greek cosmology as Erebus. It is understood in angelology that when the Lord created his angels, he did so by divine fiat, calling into the light of heaven Aether, and each angel emerging once his name was called. Ashmedai used Erebus in a polar reversal of the original act of creation, in an attempt to create a new generation of dark angels, loyal to the morning star as the angels of light were to God. This bastardization yielded the unfinished, malformed, unnatural abomination that are the serum. Though a far cry from the power and skill of heaven-born angels, the serum were a formidable swarm of creatures that the morning star deemed fit enough to satisfy his needs. On first arrival into this world, they are weak and relatively formless. They are indistinguishable from shadow and made of less than vapor. The only identifiable signs that one is present are the rapid and almost imperceptible flick of a shadow moving in the periphery of one's field of vision and an accompanying shift in temperature and atmospheric electricity that requires hardware calibrated to scientific precision to discern from the usual environmental forces. This state lingers slightly, as these omens are quickly forced from one's mind as an overwhelming sense of eyes takes hold and the primal awareness that one is currently being hunted or watched. Life is their sustenance and sole aliment. From the moment they arrive, they begin to drain life from their surroundings. Life is a very metaphorical word to be applied at foodstuff, and relative shifts in its presence or absence are almost impossible to detect. Rather seemingly unrelated events give evidence to the presence of serum. Milk curdling before it's separated from cream, crops withering before the harvest, livestock being struck barren, and illness spreading among humans and animals in unprecedented rates. Fears that belong to our ancestors more based in agriculture all portend to the presence of these spirits. Though we have the means and technology to overcome these problems, the damage is still done, and the creatures strengthened. The act of feeding only increases the creature's hunger and makes them more whole. The more one consumes in a plane of existence, the more it begins to essentially belong to that plane, reducing the amount of strength required by the serum to stay constituted and not dissolve back into shadow. This gradual change is observable as the serum begins to gain substance and form. No longer a darting shadow, they assume a form that earns their name. Described in various combinations of simian, canine, reptilian, and even vaguely human traits, the finer details of their appearance vary between cultures, but invariably are based on what they have been feeding upon, or were created to feed upon. Between their forms of spirit and flesh, their shape is as it will eventually be, but their skin remains the same living darkness, oily black, and covered in obsidian quills. It is the in-between or incomplete form that poses some of the most unique dangers. The beast is physical and established in this world. However, it retains its preternatural qualities of speed and stealth, all while continuing to feed until it reaches its final physical form. The final stage of its growth is that of a functioning organism. Its skin takes on dusky brown or grey tones to blend in with its surroundings. Its claws are mineral and sharp. Its blood is a curdled poison, and its fur lies in an impenetrable matted cloak around its form. Its heart beats, its lungs breathe, and it hungers, no longer satisfied to drain the essence of life from some form of energy from its surroundings. It's only contented with warm blood and raw flesh. Its body even gains resistance to things which would normally spell its end in a given scenario, such as prayers, charms, and incantations against it. If one were to encounter the serum in this form, shortly before claws ripped into their thoracic cavity, they would consider it as an undiscovered species or primate or large rodent. The only thing that betrays them as something other at this point is when it steps back into the shadow and its sunken lamp-like eyes begin to glow like hellfire as its face splits open in a jagged mouth to reveal countless conical teeth in an unmistakable jack-o'-lantern grin. While this may sound dramatic, there have been many alleged sightings of creatures such as this within the deep wilderness. Among the times of the Greeks, one of the more famous satyrs was Pan, made famous in modern cultures recently in such movies as Pan's Labyrinth, as well as other satyr-like demons such as the main demonic character in the movie Insidious, also about diabolical infestation, oppression, and possession. It is also important to note that famed demonologist Ed Warren and his nephew John Zaffis have, in their retrospective books, claimed to see very similar physical apparitions of what they classified as demonic entities. In both cases they were reptilian, but with a darker, blacker type of skin. In both events, both men were shaken to their cores, and Ed Warren refused to speak about it publicly, beside the fleeting and vague descriptions that were given. With these creatures, several demonic names always arise as the masters over a great number of the beasts. Ashmedai, as the creator of the serum, devised for himself a special class of the Seir demons, most well known in Zoroastrianism as Deva, described as larger than usual, and always remaining in the in-between state of shade and flesh. Also distinguishing is their particular suitability to navigate and act in the spirit world undetected. Aside from Ashmedai, another master or rather mistress of the serum is one often called the Witch Queen, Lilith. Hers are a peculiar brood of the serum in respect to their creation and naming. Called Lilin from the Akkadian Lilichu, they are the oldest recorded vampiric creatures that embody the dark and chill of night. Lilith's only mention in the biblical canon is in fact accompanied by a mention of the serum, but the origin of her specific class and breed lie in the Hebraic and ancient Near Eastern lore. The first woman and original wife of Adam, Lilith abandoned her role as mother to mankind and companion to Adam in favor of personal power, fleeing Eden and retreating to the wilderness to hide from the Lord after committing prime blasphemy. Before the Lord sent his angels to retrieve her, she was discovered by Samael, the venom of God, who is called the Prince of Hell and the only angel whose wickedness rivals and in some views surpasses that of Lucifer himself. During their stint of cohabitation, Samael indulged in his most sadistic pleasures while Lilith gained knowledge of the most arcane and wicked arts, twisting her very soul into something unrecognizable. From this unholy union, Lilith conceived the first generation of her viper's blood. Having never tasted of the fruit of knowledge as Eve later would, Lilith remained immune to mortality and bore children by the hundred with no birthing pains. From the mingled blood of primal humans and the tainted seed of the fallen angel of death, the Lilin was spawned already dead, so that they may live by stealing life. When the angels Sanoi, Sansanoi, and Semangelov finally discovered the abomination, the Lord ordered them to slaughter the beasts with flood waters, tempest winds, and fire from heaven. Surviving the maelstrom, Lilith returned to the garden to find Adam now with Eve and destined to populate the world. Incensed that Eve could replace her, that she could bear children whilst Lilith's had been destroyed, Lilith fused her twisted soul with the spirits of Samael's demonic concubines to form a single witch of unrivaled power. Every generation of Lilin that followed were born from this black magic amalgamation and were ordered to prey on the children of men and steal the breath from sleeping babes in a form described as creeping in through bedroom windows, slinking like skeletal black cats. In modern times, we refer to this scenario as SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, to which we still have no definite cause or cure. This phenomenon was so greatly feared in ages past that extensive amulets were carved into the children's beds and cribs taken from the mystical Hebrew text of the Book of Raziel, while Babylonians prayed to the demonic deity of storms and chaos, Pazuzu, or Azazel in Hebrew, believed to be the only entity in which Lilith fears. The final and most notable Seir master is the aforementioned archfiend Azazel. It's the association with Azazel, the devil in the wilderness to whom the biblical scapegoat offerings are directed, that Seirim receive their name goats, or satyrs as they are called in Isaiah 34, when mentioned among their fellow monsters, Lilith included. The book of Leviticus details the redemption rituals of Yom Kippur, the crutch of which focuses on the sacrifice of two goats, one to the Lord, the other the Lord deems to be endowed with the sins of the Israelites and cast out into the wilderness outside Jerusalem to be slaughtered by Azazel, taking the sins away with the goat's life. From the book of the sacrifice and a year's worth of incarnate Israelite sins, the devil raised a clutch of Seirim designed to wander the desert like himself and drain all life from the barren landscape. Like Lilith, this is neither Azazel's first experience with Seirim nor his original breed. During the war in heaven, Azazel was issued an immense force of the original Seirim, in numbers larger than Ashmedai's. With this army, Azazel formed an alliance with the Jinn, or Jinni, who also refused to submit to God and attempted to occupy the whole of the earth. Azazel's second generation of his own design are recorded within the mythologies of the Mediterranean regions under the moniker of satyr, distinguished by their more rugged and bestial appearance along with what can only be described as an insatiable lust. Though similar to incubi in certain respects, their particular revelry combined with the corrupting presence of their master drive women to insanity. But the ability to conjure serum is not limited to these specific archfiends. Though the methods are a darkly guarded secrets of fallen angels, the rituals involve creating a massive shift in the balance inherent to nature, like the stretching of a guitar string far out from its neck and allowing it to snap back against the fretboard. The resulting dissonant twang is amplified and resonates using the qualities of the instrument designed to project its sound. However, unlike the instrument, which can be returned quite easily, this act leaves a scar upon nature in the vicinity of its performance that takes longer than the abilities of human reckoning to return back to its proper tune. To achieve such an unholy dissonance, a great act of evil is required, becoming more unnaturally heinous depending on the number of serum conjured from Airbus to the location. Most often in the lore, an act of sorcery or witchcraft is combined and augmented with the mingling of a physical embodiment of cosmic evil with sacrificial blood. A prime location for such a summoning is within a human being. Mazakin, the Aramaic word for demons capable of possession, summon serum after inhabiting a human vessel, using the unnatural process of possessing another and a blood offering from their victim to create a host of seer assistants. These act to absorb the immense life force emitted by the soul, reducing the possession victim's ability to resist while keeping them imprisoned in darkness. In the famous case that inspired William Blatty's novel The Exorcist and its subsequent film, the afflicted child reported a vision of his salvation at the end of his possession ordeal in which the mazik lost control and an angel drove it out, burning away its serum. Despite deadly force and countless numbers, serum are plagued with a host of vulnerabilities. Though never falling for the same trick twice, there are undeniable constants that they cannot avoid, many of which exist due to their nature as extensions of their summoners. Light is the ultimate bane of serum. Light creates shadows by a force causing the absence of light. So Ashmedai, a being made from the light of heaven, created the serum from the dark void of hell. But just the same, light extinguishes darkness. While light, be it from a fire or some other source, repels the creatures, they are utterly annihilated by either lightning strikes or sunlight. At the first light of a new day, serum are forced to nest back in the dark place in which they were summoned. To a great degree, it is from this tradition, noted especially in the case of the Lilin, that the popular tradition of vampires burning in sunlight derives. Among physical weakness, silver is always lethal to serum, its efficacy only surpassed by sunlight. Consecrated iron will wound serum, causing them to bleed, and from this effusion, though itself poisonous, the very life they have stolen is emitted. In this form, the life will be taken up by whatever is around it, be it the ground it soaks into, whoever struck the seer, but also the serum surrounding their wounded fellow. Unfortunately, the more critical the wound, the more the outpouring of life will attract serum, chumming the waters, so to speak. One's only guarantee with this method would be to make the strike absolutely critical, dispatching the seer instantaneously. Without the creature attempting to hold its form, the force of life is altogether released throughout the whole of the area. It is difficult to pinpoint the exact location of such a killstroke on the creature. It can be said that the best approximation would be its head, more specifically, its glowing eyes. The most notable exception to iron are satyrs. Anticipating man's use of iron in his most deadly weapons, Azazel proofed the beasts against iron's devastating effect. The only value of the metal known is in respect to the mechanical pressure it can apply. In other words, how far the creature can be flung away from oneself after being struck by the iron instrument. However, there are magics still affecting them which cannot be overridden. In the specific case of satyrs, flint readily penetrates their skin and inflicts wounds from which they cannot recover. As mentioned, fire repels serum, and flint's most distinctive feature is its ability to shed sparks when struck, leading to its mythological role as the physical vessel of primal fire. Equally so, flint was the stone on which man distinguished himself from animals. flint being the prime material for tools for countless millennia in man's distant past and the source of man's greatest tool, fire. Also effective against satyrs is orichalcum, meaning mountain metal, understood to be various natural and artificial alloys of brass and bronze. Though common-sounding, this metal was understood by extension to be more than just brass, but a mythic alloy valued next to gold. This mythic status of a metal is seen again in later ages with the first appearance of steel and the magical qualities attributed to it. While the exact process was unknown to the smiths, every so often an iron sword would be different, and it was understood then some form of magic or alchemy had altered the metal to its new form. Very notable cases of such magic sword include the sword of Faibois belonging to St. Joan of Arc, Joyeuse the sword of Charlemagne, Roland's Durandal, Oliver's Hauteclair, Oigar's katana, and Arthur's Excalibur. Alloy weapons like flint represent a leap forward in humanity's progress, and every step taken towards progress is a step to thwart the efforts of Azazel against him and all the powers the Archfiend commands. Coincidentally, alloy metals are associated with the archangel who defeated Azazel in Jewish mysticism. The widespread presence of Lilin and their particular vampiric actions has greatly given them distinction, entering a class very uniquely their own. Their unique weaknesses are reported in traditional vampiric lore. Most notably, their inability to cross moving water and their obsessive-compulsive need to undo knots, breaking both binding magics and literal knots. This is again an extension of their progenitrix. Though Lilith's power is nothing if not considerable, there are several occasions in Judaic lore in which she is rendered powerless after being bound by an exorcist's prayers. A Talmudic example includes the prophet Elijah going so far as to extract the names of her demonic side while in this state. Physical knots bear another layer of symbolism concerning the ancient practice of sealing prayers and sacred incantation in knotted string, the knots on the Jewish talith being an example of such sacred knots. Spells may also be formed in this manner, in a practice Levitical law actually lists as a form of magic forbidden to Aaronic priests. Lilith, as a witch, takes note of such practice, literal and metaphorical, and regards it as competition, using her Lilin to undo the magic of others in a move towards supremacy, as well as a preventative defense mechanism against the possibility of an exorcist binding Lilith's demonic half, as has been recorded in the Talmud. The following conclusion is a note from the editor, who I would like to thank for giving me permission to narrate this article. As previously stated, this article is from the website Diabolical Confusions. If the subject matter interests you, I would highly recommend going and checking out the website, clicking the link in the description below. I had told everyone that sometime in the near future, a new writer, Animus, would be stepping up to the plate and delivering some unique and original content to Diabolical Confusions. After reading this article, I was blown away. The amount of information that was included, as well as the sheer amount of research and fact-finding that had to be completed for this article to make sense to the average reader, was nothing short of astounding. With that being said, the serum pose a different threat to those of us who dare to step out of the darkness and into the light. We saw that they have a very obvious connection with the Shadow People, of which a previous article had been written on this site, as well as the elusive and powerful species of Islamic origin, the Jinn. I learned that they are affiliated with other higher-level demonic entities such as Ashmedai, Asmodeus, Azazel, and the mother of all demons herself, Lilith. This is a terror that dates back to the dawn of man, and they give us significant cause to fear what lies within the dark. In his attempt to explain what these creatures may look like, I tried to find some freely available images on the internet of what the most famous version of these creatures, the satyrs, may look like. It's important to note, though, that not all of these entities will look like a satyr, and to remember that there are many generations and variants of the serum. Just like the angels have rank by depending on which choir they are from, so too do demons. And their creations have been used many times for many reasons throughout history, so to claim we know exactly what they look like would be foolish. For all we know, we may find a Bigfoot or Sasquatch one day, and discover that he is in fact one of the serum. We simply don't know. What caught me off guard most was perhaps the fact that these serum can and have been conjured by other more experienced and more powerful demons throughout the course of a possession. While Animus cited the work The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty, a fictional case of possession, what springs to my mind is a book written in November 1983 by a man named Gerard Brittle. The name of the book was The Devil in Connecticut, and it was released by Bantam Books. In this non-fiction work, the possessing demon of a small male child called in reinforcements to assist him in guaranteeing the full-blown possession of not only this child, but other members of this child's family as well. This particular tale has been the cause of much debate, based on the fact that as the child got older, he and his brothers claimed that they wanted to change their story, and put on the record that they all believed that the child, now fully grown, had been suffering from mental illness, and that they were just exploited by demonologists and the author. While this has caused a great debate and spawned several legal cases, some of which have successfully banned the book from being sold, I have no doubt in my mind that the possessing demon in this case had summoned some of the serum, a total of almost 40 of them if I recall correctly. Animus also tied in some other aspects on how you can protect yourself, with one of those methods being iron. Another article which has also been written on this site, and in closing, has shown us why, aside from Jung's assessments, man has a valid reason to fear the dark. So think back to all of those times that you have seen a moving shadow dart quickly around in your peripheral vision, or that time you couldn't explain why you felt as if the corner of your dark bedroom was watching you when you knew you were alone. Know that while many would say that it is all in your head, there are also many of us that would acknowledge that something just may, in fact, be there. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit the like button, and if you enjoyed my narration, please also subscribe to my channel. In addition to the writers, I'd also like to give a huge thank you to the artist who created the images for this video, Lee Guentert. I'll also share a link to his Instagram in the description below, and I highly recommend you go and check it out. He does some amazing artwork. Finally, I've gotten around to releasing my new podcast, which is available on iTunes and Google Play. It's called Deliver Us. I would love it if you were to check it out and also leave me some 5-star reviews to help it to grow. Here's a little teaser of the opening of the first episode. I'm going to leave this with you and say thanks again for watching this video. Bedroom closets always seem to scare those whose imaginations run wild at night. Many children at some point in their childhood will have sleepless nights for fear of the boogeyman or monsters residing deep within. Shadows cast over items of clothing or old toys can resemble the silhouette of a person or creature, something that terrifies us beyond the point of rational thought, freezes us with fear, preventing us from venturing across the bedroom to know what truly hides there. Maybe we are deceived by the shadows, or maybe there truly is something malevolent hiding there watching over us as we sleep. This is a story of a young man's curiosity leading him down a path of darkness. If you believe in ghosts and demons, you'll understand they're not to be messed with. This darkness can attach to us, wreak havoc with our own lives and those of the lives around us. Welcome to Deliver Us. Colin Hughes was 18. He was a hard-working young man who lived with his grandparents in Missouri. Life didn't start well for Colin. His father left at an early age, and his relationship with his mother was never a good one. She hadn't accepted the responsibilities as a mother, and due to her inability to care for his basic needs, his grandparents took him in when he was 12. From the time Colin moved into his grandparents' house, he heard indescribable noises in the dead of night. Colin never scared easily, and to begin with was able to rationalize that it was simply the fact that the house was old and the floorboards or plumbing were the cause of whatever he was hearing. A little description of the house layout. Both Colin's and his grandparents' bedrooms were in the upstairs of the house. There is a bathroom upstairs that is pretty much Colin's, as his grandparents' bedroom has an ensuite bathroom attached. In early 2018, Colin had just started a job bussing tables at a local restaurant. His job meant he usually didn't get off work until late evenings. On the night of February 20th, Colin had gotten off a little earlier than usual, around 10 p.m. He decided to meet up with a friend afterwards. He ended up getting home around 12 a.m. His grandparents were already fast asleep. They tended to go to bed at 10 every night. Colin made sure he crept up the stairs and to his bedroom quietly enough so as not to wake his grandparents. He closed his bedroom door behind him and noticed the light in his closet was on. He must have left it on when he was in there earlier in the day. The closet appeared to be as old as the house and always gave Colin an uneasy feeling. If it wasn't closed all the way, sometimes the doors would creak open a little, so it was habit for Colin to ensure it was fully shut before going to bed. This night, however, as he closed it to click it shut, he felt an overwhelming sense of sadness come over him. He felt tears welling up, but no root cause of where this emotion came from. He backed away towards his bed, and the feeling slowly subsided. He got into bed and tucked himself into his duvet, feeling a sense of protection from it. For Colin, sleep didn't come easily that night. Something still didn't feel right. After a while, he checked his watch, and it was a little after 1 a.m. He lay his head down to try to finally fall asleep, but as he did so, he started to hear footsteps in the corridor